Under the silent glow of twin alien moons, Ethan walked deeper into the strange forest, his boots sinking softly into the moss that pulsed faintly with blue light. The air carried a weight he could not explain, thick with the scent of iron and something older, something unearthly. Every step echoed in the emptiness around him, though no trees should have made such sounds. He felt as if the shadows themselves were alive, bending and curling in the corners of his vision. Somewhere in the distance, a low cry cut through the night, not like any animal he had ever heard before. It was deep, broken, yet strangely beautiful, as if the voice of the forest itself had been wounded. He froze, his breath caught in his throat, and for a moment he wanted to turn back. But curiosity, stronger than fear, pulled him forward. The sound came again, weaker this time, carrying both pain and desperation. His heartbeat quickened as he pushed through glowing ferns that brushed against his arms like cold fingers. And then he saw it. Lying in a hollow of stone and moss, its body shaking with every breath, was a creature that should not have existed. It was shaped like a leopard, but its fur shimmered with patterns that looked like fragments of the night sky. Stars seemed to move under its skin, galaxies swirled faintly across its body, and its eyes, though dim, glowed with a deep neon blue that seemed both intelligent and pleading. Blood, dark and shimmering like liquid crystal, stained the ground beneath it. Ethan's first instinct was to run, because nothing in this world should look like that, but something inside him, something stronger than fear, made his legs bend and brought him closer. The leopard raised its head weakly, meeting his eyes, and in that moment Ethan felt as though his soul had been pulled from his body. Images flooded his mind, burning worlds, vast armies of faceless beings, a star collapsing into darkness. He stumbled backward, clutching his head, gasping for breath as the visions faded. When he opened his eyes, the leopard was still staring at him, as if waiting for a choice. Ethan knew he should not touch it, every instinct screamed at him to leave, but his hands betrayed him. He knelt down beside the beast, trembling, and pressed his palm gently against its chest. A surge of energy burst through him like fire and ice at once. He screamed, the sound lost in the vast silence of the forest, as strange markings lit up across his skin, glowing faintly before fading into scars that did not belong to any human language. The leopard shuddered, its breathing steadier now, and Ethan realized the wound was already closing. It was healing, but not by its own strength. It was drawing life from him. His chest ached as if something vital had been torn away. He tried to pull his hand back but could not. His body felt anchored to the creature, bound by a chain he could not see. Then, without moving its mouth, a voice slipped into his mind. Soft, ancient, and heavy with sorrow, it whispered, "You should not have done this." Ethan stumbled away, falling back onto the moss, his heart racing. The leopard stood now, taller than any animal he had ever known, its glowing eyes fixed on him. The forest around them grew darker, as if the trees themselves recoiled. Ethan struggled to breathe, his body weak, but he could not look away. The creature took one slow step toward him, and with every movement shadows rippled outward like waves. The voice returned, sharper this time. "They will come." Ethan wanted to ask who, but the words refused to form. His mouth was dry, his throat closed with fear. The leopard's eyes glowed brighter, casting strange patterns across the stones, and the night itself seemed to listen. Suddenly, a distant roar of thunder rolled across the sky, though no clouds had formed. Ethan's stomach sank as he realized it was not thunder, it was something else, something alive. The leopard turned its head toward the horizon, ears twitching, muscles tense despite its wounds. Ethan followed its gaze and saw faint streaks of light in the heavens, moving fast, far too fast to be stars. His body trembled as a cold wind rushed through the forest, carrying with it the smell of metal and ash. Something was coming, something that wanted this creature dead. And now, because he had touched it, because he had tried to save it, Ethan felt certain they would come for him too. The leopard lowered its head slightly, almost in a bow, and for the first time Ethan understood the terrible truth: his life was no longer his own. Whatever path lay ahead, it had already been written the moment he placed his hand upon the dying beast. He stood slowly, his legs weak, his mind spinning with fear and wonder. The forest seemed alive now, every sound sharper, every shadow deeper, as though the bond between them had opened his senses to a world hidden from humans. The leopard's voice echoed once more inside his head, this time filled with a cold certainty. You are bound, and what follows will haunt you forever. Ethan staggered back, staring at the alien stars above, as the ground beneath his feet trembled with the arrival of something vast and merciless, moving closer with every breath. Ethan could not sleep that night. His body felt heavy yet strangely alive, every nerve trembling as if a storm lived under his skin. He sat inside the cave where he had dragged the strange leopard, watching its chest rise and fall in slow, powerful breaths. The wound that had once been deep and fatal was now nothing more than a faint scar glowing softly in the dark. The creature's fur shimmered in the dim light of the cave, constellations shifting across its body like living star maps. Ethan pressed his hands together, trying to steady the tremor in his fingers. He knew he should leave, walk away, forget this night ever happened, but he could not. Something inside him was tied to the beast, something invisible yet unbreakable. Every time the leopard's breath quickened, his own chest tightened. Every time its eyes glowed, he felt a spark burn in his mind. The bond was real, and it terrified him. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the faint dripping of water from the cave walls. When dawn finally came, Ethan dared to step outside. The alien forest looked different now. The glowing plants shimmered brighter, the air vibrated with hidden energy, and every sound, the rustle of leaves, the crackle of branches, seemed amplified. He bent down to drink from a stream, but when he saw his reflection in the water, his breath froze. Strange markings, faint but visible, wound across his skin like veins of light. They pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, whispering a language he did not know. He splashed the water, panicked, but the marks did not fade. He stumbled back into the cave, fear tightening around his throat. The leopard was awake now, its glowing eyes fixed on him. For a moment Ethan felt trapped under that gaze, like prey before a predator, yet the creature did not move to strike. Instead, its voice slid into his mind again, calm but heavy. The bond grows. You are not the same as before. Ethan pressed his hands over his ears, as if that would stop the voice, but it only grew clearer. Why me? He whispered aloud, his voice shaking. Why did this happen? The leopard lowered its head, its eyes dimming with something that looked like grief. Because you chose. And now, neither of us can turn back. That day, Ethan tried to gather food, though every sound made him feel watched. He found fruits hanging from vines, glowing faintly like lanterns, and carried them back to the cave. The leopard ate slowly, its fangs glinting under the shifting light, yet never once did it attack him. If anything, it seemed protective. Still, Ethan noticed something disturbing. When the leopard licked at the glowing fruit, his own tongue burned with a taste he could not explain, as though his body was sharing its hunger. He dropped the rest of the food, horrified by the realization. Whatever link existed between them was deeper than he wanted to believe. As night returned, Ethan heard voices carried by the wind. He froze at the mouth of the cave, heart pounding. They were not human voices. They were sharp, hollow, like whispers made of metal scraping against stone. The leopard growled low, its fur bristling, shadows swirling at its feet. Ethan's blood went cold. The voices grew louder, closer, moving through the forest like hunters closing in on prey. He saw faint shapes between the glowing trees, tall figures gliding soundlessly, their forms bent and faceless. He ducked into the cave, clutching the jagged rock in his hand as a useless weapon. The leopard stood before him, its body glowing faintly, a barrier between him and the creatures outside. The whispers echoed all around, yet none of the figures entered the cave. They hovered near the entrance, their heads twitching unnaturally, as if sniffing the air without mouths. Ethan's lungs burned from holding his breath. Then one of the creatures stepped closer, its arm stretching into a thin blade of shadow. But before it could move farther, the leopard let out a low, rumbling snarl. The cave shook as if the very earth feared that sound. The figures froze, then, one by one, faded back into the darkness of the forest, their whispers melting into the wind. When silence returned, Ethan collapsed to his knees, drenched in cold sweat. His body trembled, but the leopard stood calm, its glowing eyes never leaving the forest beyond. Finally, the voice came again, quiet but firm. They know. They will not stop. Ethan lifted his head slowly, staring at the beast. Who are they? He asked, voice cracking. The leopard turned its gaze toward the stars through the crack in the cave roof. Hunters. Shadows born from silence. They follow me across worlds. And now, they will follow you too. Ethan's heart sank. His mind fought to deny it, but deep down he knew it was true. He had seen them, felt their presence, and now he was marked by their hunt. He leaned against the wall, running a hand across his glowing scars, his chest heavy with dread. What do they want? He whispered. The leopard lowered its head, eyes gleaming faintly in the dark. Not what? Who? They want me. But through me, they will take you. The cave grew colder, the silence deeper than before, as if the forest itself held its breath. Ethan stared at the creature, at the shifting galaxies in its fur, and for the first time he understood the weight of his mistake. He had saved something that should not have been saved, and in doing so he had pulled himself into a war that was far older, far darker, than anything his world had ever known. The leopard's final words that night were like chains around his soul. You are bound to me now. And the path ahead will break or remake you. Ethan lay awake until morning, the image of those faceless hunters burning in his mind. The cave no longer felt like a shelter. It felt like a prison, and outside, the galaxy itself was closing in on him. The night stretched on endlessly, and when dawn arrived, the light brought no comfort. Ethan stood at the edge of the forest clearing, his eyes heavy with exhaustion but his senses sharp, too sharp. He could hear things he should not have been able to hear, the wings of insects brushing against leaves, the faint hum of the glowing plants, even the steady pulse of the alien leopard breathing inside the cave. He pressed his hands against his temples, trying to block out the flood of sounds, but they only grew stronger. His body no longer felt entirely his own. Every breath seemed shared, every heartbeat echoed, as though he was only half a man now, the other half hidden in the great creature that followed him with silent, glowing eyes. He wanted to believe this was all a dream, but the scars on his skin glowed faintly with every thought, burning like living ink. The leopard padded out of the cave, its paws silent against the moss. Its fur shimmered faintly, galaxies flowing across its body as if the universe itself lived inside it. Ethan turned, meeting its gaze. There was something in those eyes that was not animal at all. Wisdom, sorrow, and a warning he could not ignore. Before he could speak, the sound came again. Low at first, distant but unmistakable. The hum of machines cutting through the silence. He looked up at the sky and froze. 3 streaks of light tore across the horizon, moving faster than any star. They descended in sharp, unnatural arcs, glowing brighter as they neared the forest. His stomach twisted with dread. He had seen them in his visions, and now they were real. The leopard's body stiffened, for bristling, and Ethan heard the voice inside his head once more. They are here. His throat went dry. The hunters, he whispered. The ships vanished beyond the tree-line, but moments later the ground trembled beneath his boots. Trees shook violently, birds of light scattered in chaotic patterns, and a metallic roar spread through the air. Ethan backed into the cave instinctively, gripping the sharp rock he still carried from the night before. It was useless against whatever was coming, but he needed something in his hands, anything. The leopard stepped in front of him, its body low, muscles coiled with power despite the wound that had only just healed. Then they emerged. Figures taller than any human, their bodies stretched thin, cloaked in shifting shadows that writhed like smoke. They moved without sound, yet the forest bent around them as if afraid to touch them. Their faces were blank, smooth plains of darkness, their arms stretching unnaturally into blades of black light. Ethan's chest tightened, his breath shallow. He remembered their whispers from the night before, but seeing them now was worse. They looked like walking nightmares, and every step they took made the air colder. The creatures paused at the clearing, their faceless heads turning toward the cave. Ethan's heart stopped. He could feel it, through the bond. They weren't looking for him. They were looking for the leopard. But because of the link between them, he was just as visible. His skin burned, the scars glowing brighter, betraying him. One of the hunters raised its blade-like arm and pointed toward the cave. The others moved in unison, gliding across the ground as though they were made of smoke and steel. Ethan stumbled back, panic crushing his chest. "What do we do?" he gasped, though he knew the leopard already had the answer. The beast leapt forward, its roar shaking the cave and rolling through the forest like thunder. Shadows rippled outward, slamming into the hunters with force Ethan could feel in his bones. The hunters staggered but did not fall. Their forms twisted, reforming as if made of liquid darkness. Then, with terrifying speed, they surged forward. The forest exploded into chaos. The leopard launched itself into the air, its body glowing like a living star, colliding with the first hunter in a clash of light and shadow. The impact shook the ground, sending cracks through the stone beneath Ethan's feet. He stumbled outside, caught in the storm of battle. 2 more hunters circled him, their faceless heads tilting unnaturally, their whispers crawling into his mind. His vision blurred, the world twisting. He saw himself falling, his body lifeless, the leopard chained in darkness. He cried out and swung the rock blindly. To his shock, the scars on his skin flared, and the rock glowed for an instant, striking one of the hunters with a burst of light. The creature staggered, its shadow form hissing, before reforming again. Ethan froze, his chest heaving. He had hurt it. Somehow, the bond gave him power too. But with every spark of strength came a terrible price. His vision darkened at the edges, his body trembling, as though the more he fought, the more of himself slipped away. He dropped to one knee, gasping for air, while the hunters closed in. The leopard slammed into them with unrelenting fury, its claws slicing through shadows, its roars filling the night. Yet even it was struggling. For every hunter struck down, another seemed to rise, their forms endless, their whispers endless. Ethan forced himself up, the scars on his skin blazing like fire. He raised his hand without thinking, and shadows bent around his fingers. The air cracked, and a burst of energy shot outward, scattering the hunters like leaves in a storm. He collapsed again, his body screaming in pain, his mind drowning in voices that were not his own. He could feel the leopard inside him, roaring, fighting, burning. It was too much. When silence finally fell, the clearing was empty except for broken trees and smoldering light. The hunters were gone, dissolved back into the shadows of the forest, for now. Ethan lay on the ground, too weak to move, his vision flickering. The leopard stood over him, its glowing eyes sharp, its body trembling with exhaustion. For the first time, Ethan saw fear in the creature's gaze. The voice in his head came again, softer than before, almost mournful. "They will not stop. You have seen their strength. You have felt their hunger. They will return again and again, until either I am gone, or you are." Ethan swallowed hard, his body aching, his mind spinning with terror and wonder. He knew then that his life had changed forever. The hunters would never stop. And because of the bond, neither could he. The forest was no longer a place of mystery. It was a battlefield. And he was standing on the wrong side of it. Ethan woke to the sound of silence, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the kind that pressed against his chest and made every breath feel stolen. The cave walls seemed to lean closer, the shadows thicker, as though they carried secrets that did not belong to this world. He sat up slowly, every muscle aching from the battle the night before. His body felt both fragile and strange, as though it no longer belonged entirely to him. When he looked down at his arms, the scars glowed faintly, pulsing with a rhythm that was not his heartbeat. It was something deeper, older, something that terrified him. He touched the marks, and for a moment his vision blurred, showing him stars burning out, entire worlds collapsing into darkness. He tore his hand away, panting, as if he had almost fallen into another universe. The leopard stirred beside him, its body glowing faintly even in the dark cave. Its wounds were gone, healed completely, but exhaustion clung to its movements. It raised its head and fixed those neon blue eyes on him, and for a moment Ethan forgot how to breathe. There was nothing of a normal beast in that gaze. It was ancient, full of stories, grief, and a burden too heavy for words. The voice entered his mind again, calmer this time, but it vibrated with weight. You deserve the truth. Ethan leaned back against the cave wall, fear and curiosity twisting inside him. Then tell me, he whispered, his voice cracking. Tell me what you are. Tell me what they are. Tell me why they want us dead. The leopard lowered its head, the galaxies in its fur shifting slowly, as if stirred by invisible winds. I am the last of my kind, the voice said, and for the first time Ethan felt sadness in it. We were once guardians of a galaxy that is no more. Within me lies its core, the final spark of a dying star system. My kind carried this light across ages, across worlds, to keep alive what should have ended. The hunters you saw are shadows born from silence, an ancient order sworn to erase us, to ensure the galaxy never rises again. Ethan's skin turned cold. He struggled to form words, his mind rebelling against what he was hearing. You're telling me, inside you is an entire galaxy? The beast's eyes burned brighter. Not the galaxy as it was. Only the seed. Only the memory of what it can become. It is both life and curse. And when you touched me, you bound yourself to it. You are now a carrier of its spark as well. That is why they hunt you. Ethan shook his head violently, pressing his palms to his temples. No. I didn't ask for this. I was only trying to help you. I didn't want this. The leopard's voice deepened, steady, unyielding. Choice does not matter now. The bond is sealed. If I die, you will die. If you die, the seed will fade. But if you survive, you may become more than human. Or less. Ethan stood, pacing the cave like a trapped animal. His breaths came fast, uneven, his mind racing with fear. He remembered the hunters, their faceless heads, their whispers like knives in his skull. He remembered the power that had exploded from his hands, the way it had felt like fire and ice ripping through his veins. He remembered the shadows bending to his will. It had not been human. It had not been him. And the more he thought about it, the more he feared the bond was not giving him power, it was consuming him. He turned sharply to the leopard. Then tell me the truth. What's happening to me? These visions, these powers, what are they doing? For a moment, the creature was silent. Then the voice returned, heavy as stone. The bond is changing you. You carry part of me within you now, part of the galaxy's spark. It gives you strength, yes. But it is not meant for your kind. Each time you call upon it, you lose a piece of yourself. If you use it too much, there will be nothing human left. Ethan staggered back, his stomach churning, his heart hammering against his ribs. He wanted to scream, to deny it, but deep down he already knew it was true. The whispers in his head, the shadows that bent at his touch, the hunger in his bones, it was already happening. He collapsed against the cave wall, dragging his hands over his face. So what do I do? Run. Hide. Wait for them to kill us both. The leopard's gaze softened, its glow dimming slightly. You survive. You learn to master what you carry. The hunters will come again, stronger than before. If you are weak, we both end. If you are strong, perhaps the galaxy's spark will live. But know this, Ethan, strength will cost you everything. The words echoed in his skull, heavy and suffocating. He felt like the ground beneath him was slipping away, dragging him into a war he could never win. He wanted to scream at the creature, to curse the moment he ever laid eyes on it. Yet when he looked into its glowing eyes again, he saw not a monster, not a curse, but a being carrying a burden far greater than his own. It was not his enemy. It was his mirror. The forest outside groaned as a wind passed through, carrying with it whispers of the hunter's return. Ethan shivered, his scars burning faintly, as though answering some unseen call. He clenched his fists, anger and fear boiling in equal measure. He had saved the leopard, and in doing so he had doomed himself. But the bond could not be undone, and running would not save him. The hunters would find them both. The leopard's voice was the last thing he heard before sleep finally dragged him into uneasy dreams. You are bound to a destiny greater than yourself. You can fight it, or you can embrace it. But know this, the galaxy inside us will not forgive weakness. Ethan's dreams that night were filled with fire, collapsing stars, and shadows that carried his face. He woke with one truth carved into his heart: the curse of the bond was not only survival. It was the certainty that no matter what path he chose, he would never again be the man he once was. Ethan's sleep did not bring rest. Every time he closed his eyes, the dreams dragged him deeper into places that did not belong to him. Burning planets, oceans of stars spilling into nothingness, armies of faceless hunters marching under skies of black fire. When he woke, sweat drenched his body, his chest heaving, but the visions clung to him like smoke. His skin still burned with glowing scars, alive with whispers he could not silence. He staggered out of the cave into the forest, gulping down the cold air, but it did not help. The forest itself had changed. Where once he had seen wonder, now he saw threat. Every shadow seemed alive, every flicker of light an omen. He pressed his hands against his ears, but the voices did not stop. They were not outside, they were inside him. The leopard padded silently after him, its glowing eyes watching, its body moving with quiet strength. Ethan turned on it, his voice breaking. What's happening to me? I can't control it. I hear them, I see things that aren't real. I feel like I'm slipping away. The creature did not flinch. Instead, the voice inside his mind spoke with calm certainty. The bond is not gentle. It was never meant for one of your kind. The spark of the galaxy changes what it touches. You are becoming more than human. But to gain such power, you must give. Ethan shook his head violently, clutching his chest. I don't want to give anything. I didn't ask for this. I just wanted to help you. Now I feel like I'm dying a little more every second. His words echoed through the glowing forest, but no comfort followed. The leopard only lowered its head slightly, as if in mourning. That day, Ethan felt the curse of the bond more clearly than ever. His senses sharpened beyond reason. He could hear the blood rushing in his veins, the distant thrum of insects buried under the soil, even the steady heartbeat of the leopard beside him. When he reached for a fallen branch, it snapped in his grip as though it were paper. For a moment, he stared at his hand in awe and terror. He was stronger, faster, sharper. Yet each time the power surged through him, he felt something else slip away. His memories, his thoughts, his very sense of self. He tried to recall the faces of his family, his friends back home, but they blurred in his mind like fading pictures. The bond was not only giving, it was taking. As evening fell, the forest grew restless. The wind carried whispers, not from the trees, but from the hunters. Ethan froze, his blood running cold. He felt them before he heard them, their presence pressing against his skull like knives. The leopard growled low, its fur bristling with light, its gaze locked on the darkness between the trees. Shadows stretched unnaturally, and then they appeared again. Tall, faceless figures gliding soundlessly, their bodies bending like smoke, their arms sharpening into blades. Ethan's heart hammered. He stumbled back, but the hunters did not hesitate. They moved with terrifying speed, surrounding the clearing. The leopard lunged first, a roar tearing through the night, its body glowing with cosmic fire as it struck the nearest hunter. Shadows exploded, hissing, reforming again. Ethan watched, paralyzed, until one of the faceless figures turned toward him. Its blank head tilted unnaturally, and he heard the whisper not in his ears, but in his mind. You are already ours. Ethan screamed and raised his hands without thinking. The scars blazed, and shadows bent around his arms. A surge of power erupted outward, slamming into the hunter with a force that shattered trees. The creature collapsed, its form dissolving into mist. For one heartbeat Ethan felt alive, unstoppable, godlike. But then the whispers flooded back, louder, crueler, filling his skull with endless voices. He fell to his knees, clutching his head, blood trickling from his nose. The leopard fought fiercely, its claws tearing through the hunters, its roars shaking the earth. But Ethan knew the truth. The bond made him part of this fight too. If he did nothing, they would both die. With a strangled cry, he forced himself up, summoning the power again. Shadows coiled around him like living chains, bending to his will. He struck out, and the hunters shattered under his blows, but each strike left him weaker, emptier. His vision blurred, his hands shook, his chest burned as if something inside him was breaking apart. The more he fought, the less human he felt. At last, silence fell. The hunters were gone, their shadows dissolving into the night. Ethan collapsed on the ground, gasping, his body trembling violently. The leopard approached slowly, its glowing eyes unreadable. He looked up at it with terror and despair. I can't do this. Every time I fight, I lose more of myself. I can't even remember my own life anymore. Who am I becoming? The leopard's voice entered his mind, soft yet heavy with truth. You are becoming what you fear. The spark inside you is powerful, but it does not understand mercy or memory. It only understands survival. If you use it, you will win. But each victory will cost you. And in the end, you may not recognize the man who remains. Ethan closed his eyes, tears slipping down his face. He had wanted to save a dying creature, but instead he had chained himself to something vast and merciless. His hands still trembled with power, but his heart trembled more with dread. That night, as the forest fell silent again, Ethan lay awake, staring at the glowing patterns crawling across his arms. He wondered how much of himself was already gone. He wondered how much longer he could hold on before the spark consumed him completely. And worst of all, he wondered if the hunters were not his true enemy. Maybe the real enemy was already inside him. The forest was silent again, but the silence no longer comforted Ethan. It felt like the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for something terrible to come. His body ached with exhaustion, every muscle heavy, but his mind was worse, filled with whispers, visions, and fragments of thoughts that weren't his own. He sat at the cave's mouth, staring into the night, watching the stars above shimmer faintly. But he knew they weren't just stars anymore. They were doorways, memories, fragments of the galaxy the leopard carried inside its body. And now, inside him too. He clenched his fists, trying to steady his breathing, but the glowing scars on his arms pulsed faster, as if answering to the sky. The leopard lay behind him, its glowing eyes half closed, its breath deep and steady. But even in rest, it looked alert, as though it too was waiting. Ethan turned toward it, his voice low and broken. I can't keep this up. Every time I use the bond, I lose something. I can't even remember the sound of my mother's voice anymore. I'm slipping away. The beast's eyes opened slowly, galaxies swirling in their depths. The voice filled his head, heavy and steady. The bond is not meant for you. Every moment you survive is a defiance of fate. But the choice is no longer yours alone. Ethan swallowed hard. Then whose choice is it? For a long moment, the leopard said nothing. Then the answer came, sharp as a blade. Mine. Before Ethan could respond, the ground shuddered beneath them. The air grew cold, thick, as though the forest itself was suffocating. Trees bent under an invisible weight, shadows stretching unnaturally long. Ethan's scars flared with pain, and he knew instantly what it meant. The hunters had returned. But this time, they did not come in whispers and glimpses. They came in force. The sky split open with a soundless tear, and from it poured dozens of faceless figures, taller, darker, more terrible than before. Their bodies writhed with shadow, their blank faces turning as one toward the cave. Ethan's heart pounded, fear sinking into his bones. There are too many, he whispered. We can't fight them all. The leopard rose slowly, its fur blazing with cosmic fire, casting shifting star patterns across the cave walls. It stood tall, its presence both terrifying and magnificent. The voice filled Ethan's mind again, louder now, like a storm. The bond can end here. If I die, you will be free. The hunters will leave you. They want me, not you. Ethan's chest tightened, his mind spinning. No. If you die, I die too. You said it yourself. The leopard stepped closer, its eyes burning brighter. Not if I release you. But if I live, the bond will consume you. You will never escape it. You will become the very thing you fear. The words struck like knives. Ethan's thoughts raced. Could it be true? Could he walk away, human again, free of the curse? All it would cost was the life of this creature, the last of its kind. He looked into its glowing eyes and saw not just power, but sorrow, endurance, and loneliness that stretched across ages. Killing it would free him, but it would also erase something ancient, something the galaxy itself had left behind. His fists trembled, his scars burning like fire. The hunters drew closer, surrounding the clearing, their whispers crawling into his skull. He heard them promise peace if he surrendered, promise freedom if he let the beast die. For one awful moment, Ethan felt the temptation. He could be free. He could go home, live his life, forget the curse. But then he remembered the visions, the galaxies burning, the stars collapsing, the endless war. If he chose freedom, it would not only end the leopard. It would end the last spark of a dying galaxy. It would erase everything. The leopard's voice came one last time, softer now, almost pleading. Choose. Kill me, and live free. Save me, and you will never escape the bond. But the hunters will not survive you. Ethan's chest heaved, his heart breaking with the weight of the decision. Then, with a scream that tore through the night, he made his choice. He stepped in front of the leopard, scars blazing, and faced the hunters. If you want it, he shouted, his voice shaking with both fear and fury, you'll have to go through me. The hunters surged forward, shadows crashing like waves. Ethan raised his hands, and the bond exploded within him. Light and darkness spiraled together, pouring out of his body, wrapping around the leopard, wrapping around the clearing. The earth shook, trees split, the sky itself seemed to tremble. The hunters struck, but their blades shattered against the storm of power. The leopard roared, its voice echoing across worlds, and together they unleashed a force so vast that the hunters dissolved, one by one, torn apart by the very energy they sought to destroy. When the silence returned, the forest was unrecognizable. The ground was cracked, trees burned with alien fire, and the air shimmered with fading energy. Ethan fell to his knees, his body trembling violently. The power still raged inside him, but he could feel what it had cost. His eyes burned, his skin glowed faintly, and his reflection in the broken water nearby was not entirely human anymore. The leopard stood beside him, glowing brighter than ever, but its gaze was no longer sorrowful. It was steady, knowing. Ethan looked down at his trembling hands. They no longer felt like his. He could feel the leopard inside him, the spark alive in every breath, every thought. He was not Ethan anymore, not entirely. He had chosen to save it, but in doing so, he had surrendered himself. The leopard's voice echoed in his mind one last time, quiet, haunting. From this night on, it is no longer you who saves me. It is I who keeps you alive. Ethan closed his eyes, the weight of the truth pressing down like stone. He had saved the dying alien leopard, but what he had unleashed would haunt him forever.